Just waiting for the technology to catch up with the time on the clock.
Testing.
I will call the April 14th, 2026 City Council meeting to order at 6:02. Tonight's meeting is being recorded as well as live streamed. Councilors, please make sure your microphones are on and in position that we can be recorded. Thank you. I want to remind everybody that this is a safe place for all who attend and to be able to share their opinions, but we do that in a place of mutual respect and common courtesy and civility. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate actually having an audience in our council chambers. It gets sort of lonely up here sometimes for us as counselors. So we're happy that you're here. Now, if you will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Demi, would you do roll call, please?
Mayor Bell.
Here.
Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Councillor Engelbretson.
Here.
Lyman.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the mayor's comments. Again, I would like to welcome everyone here tonight. We are going to be discussing hard decisions over the next years. These are hard times. It is recognized. It is hard and difficult times economically and emotionally for many of us. So we're going to talk about this. I do want to thank my council members up here. Each of these council members works hard, goes through the packet, is familiar with the material, with the budget implications. Nothing being discussed tonight is being discussed for the first time. In fact, many of the items being discussed have been discussed repetitively over the last year and a half. We've had many council meetings, we've had town hall meetings, we've had informal community conversations. I see faces in the crowd tonight that I have not seen at any of those meetings, so we're really happy that you're here. I do want to just share a little information that I sort of have gone through over the past bit. And I wanted to first of all talk about the Lane County Sheriff's Department. It is a medium-sized agency in Oregon. There are approximately 224 sworn deputies across all divisions, and that includes corrections and patrol. For the whole of Lane County, which I'm always reminded is the size of Rhode Island, we have 3 or 4 deputies at any one time patrolling that county. I found that to be an amazing statistic. They are often underfunded, underappreciated, and many of our law enforcement officers would say the same. So just food for thought. With that, I will remind all of us here that Coburg Commons is a wonderful community space. I hope you've all been to Coburg Commons, to the bookstore, to the many events that are held there. They're having an open house this weekend on Saturday. And that is from noon to 4. I hope that some of you will be able to drop in because that will help that organization shape what that community space is going to look like in the future. That is not a city space. It is a community space. It is not funded in any way by the city, but I just wanted to remind people that that was coming. If you hadn't seen that, that's been out on social media and there have been postings around town. So with that, I will conclude my mayor's comments. And I will ask you, Sammy, are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
Yeah, you guys have a red folder in front of you.
Do-
The first item is the city administration report. After that is your police department quarterly report. There's also copies at the back if anybody here would like to see those. That will be agenda item number 7. And then there's 3 of the public safety support fee handouts and our Coburg Municipal Court handout that have been published just for reference.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're now at the agenda item public comment. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
I have 2 people signed up. I believe that it is for the public hearing on the fee for, right, okay. So that won't be during public comment, no.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Do we have any special guests tonight?
I can't hear you. You've got the microphones on, but you're not using them.
Yeah, if you could all probably get them about half the distance closer than they are.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
usually no one has any trouble hearing me, so I apologize and thank you for letting me know.
And the mic.
Okay, thank you very much. If we start getting feedback, let me know on that too, though I hope I will hear that. Okay, shuffling papers here. Special guest. We do have a U of O student. Would you like to introduce yourself? I consider you a special guest.
Sure. I'm Isaac. I'm reporting on a story for a journalism class on reporting on a city council meeting. So I come up and ask you some questions afterwards. Just know I'm doing this for an assignment.
Thank you very
My
much.
buddy Bubba Chuck with it.
Thank you. Ah, okay. So we have,
My idea.
oh, so we have 2 special guests tonight. Excellent. Okay, first item on the agenda is ordinances and resolutions. We do have the second reading of ordinance A 258, an ordinance establishing a public safety support fee.
Do you want to grab the consent agenda first? I think we
Oh,
Yeah,
I
skipped
hopped
over
right
that
by that.
yeah, to the main event. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I got so excited about special guests that I
Yeah.
went right by that. So the consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes or additions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Bell, as per usual, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you very much, Counselor Bowman. We have a motion by Counselor Bowman. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Counselor Wells to approve the consent agenda as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes unanimously, 6-0. That's for the March 10th City Council minutes. Okay, now we'll move on to the second reading of ordinance A-258. The council held the first reading and public hearing on March 10th of 2026. And we'll have a staff report from Mr. Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Just do a little bit of orientation since there's kind of two parts and part of this started last meeting and we're finishing up one part and then starting the second phase of it. So for orientation, I'll do a little PowerPoint, little slide deck to go over largely similar to last month's meeting just to get everybody on the same page. But page 7 of the packet is the staff report for the ordinance. Slight changes, but largely the same as March's staff report, as council did not indicate or a desire to change any of the wording of the draft ordinance itself. So that didn't require any changes too much in the packet for that. The draft ordinance itself, A-258, is identical to the draft ordinance proposed at first reading. So no language changes. So the item in front of council here is to approve second reading. And just for clarification, the ordinance is the mechanism that enables or enacts a fee. The resolution, which is later on the agenda, the next item on the agenda, is actually how the fee is established, the fee amount. So the ordinance just puts the legal mechanism in place legally to have the legal authority to charge, and the resolution is the fee amount. Sammy went over the extra items that relate to the public safety support fee in the red folder. Mayor, you noted a number of the town halls that we had over the past 3 or 4 weeks and other prior. So I'll go ahead and go through the PowerPoint, which kind of mushes the two items together. It talks about the ordinance that creates and then also the resolution with the fee amount. Did I go too soon? Yep. All right. So as usual, start off with this slide, which is used, I don't know, I've used it at least a dozen times now. It is we use it for budget the last couple of years. The financial stewardship goal, trying to move from financial survivability to sustainability and then ultimately to resiliency. And I think we're on the right, heading in the right direction. We're still in a bit of a survivability mode and we're working on getting towards sustainability. And again, I'm not sure of any city in Oregon or maybe anywhere beyond that truly could say that they're financially resilient. That's a tough bar in these days. I won't read these, but just a reminder that in both of the last two budget processes, the budget message was very clear in the opening page of the budget message that the general fund is facing kind of structural or systemic challenges to maintain the required funds to provide the services. Fiscal 25 was, additional revenue required. That kicked off some of the stuff that we'll talk about more on the other slide of the revenue options subcommittee after that budget process was completed. And then fiscal 26, we actually did 1.5 full-time equivalent reductions in the police department staffing and implemented a parks and open space fee. And that's those two one significant cut, one significant new piece of revenue. The combination allowed the general fund to stay balanced and stay above our minimum threshold legally. Okay, now I can be patient. And here's kind of the reason that we have the public safety support fee in front of us. This is the existing a snip from the current adopted budget. I've highlighted a couple things. The total the working capital carryover, the bottom line, shows the downward trend of fund balance projected out over a number of years beyond the current year that we're in. The yellow highlighted it kind of exacerbates the problem because both of those are not keeping up with what we projected, and those are development related revenues. So it's just another note to keep in mind when we have very limited development activity, new housing or new commercial activity, those revenues go away. Those are purely related to development activity. And they're pretty precipitous decline in fund balance over the 4 or 5 year period there. So this is a timeline. We've used this slide a bunch as well, and this gets to Mayor Bell's note that we've been talking about this, generally the financial survivability of the general fund for quite some time. So this shows kind of what has been done since the FY 25 budget, creating the subcommittee that looked at first kind of in 3 phases. The first phase was utility rates to kind of check in on the methodology and the rate model that was prescribed when we did our master planning and our capital plans. Make sure that that's on track. So that culminated in some utility rate adjustments, and then on to July of 25, where the parks and open space fee was decided to be implemented, but not the other fees that were in discussion at that time. And instead, the revenue subcommittee then kind of incorporated what was left and worked on these long range revenue options. That came back in December of 25 with a presentation from the revenue options subcommittee to the full council, a set of 7 recommendations, the primary recommendation being what we're discussing tonight, the public safety support fee. There were 4 or 5 other recommendations that are, I think, very valuable and we're working on. They don't have the same financial impact that the public safety support fee has, but nonetheless, they're valuable for us to address. Building permit fees, land use fees, an audit of some of our other revenues, the franchise fees, just to make sure that those are coming in as they should be. And then the we are here is kind of next to that green square, and we are here talking about council's decision on whether or not to implement the public safety support fee that augments the general fund revenues moving forward to allow kind of unchanged level of service, current service levels for the police department and our municipal court. So police and municipal court, this is a snip of the current year budget that shows what basically the vast majority of what we call public safety, what that costs to operate annually. So that combined budget is just under $1 million, about 800,000 for police and around 200,000 for municipal court. So it's about $1 million. And the general fund overall is about a $2 million fund. So half of the total general fund is for public safety. So here are the recommendations. They're also in the packet, and they've been in front of council a number of times. The public safety support fee, audit of existing revenue streams, property tax revenue analysis of when the urban renewal agency closes. That does have a positive revenue benefit to the general fund. That's in about 3 years from now. Building permit fee increases, we're working on that with, but there's a process that goes through the state as well as locally. Same thing with land use zoning permit fees. Again, those are dependent upon development activity. So if there's not much development activity, those don't generate much revenue. And then another recommendation was on information outreach for these recommendations, and then closing out the committee. And the phase 1 was utility rates. Phase 2 was the parks and open space, and we're doing phase 3 right now. I think that looks like it for kind of getting us level set for the rest of the conversation. As I said, right now, the item that I'm kind of doing a combined staff report presentation for, the first of 2 is the ordinance. So we can kind of segregate that. The fee and the fee amount will be the next agenda item. So I'm glad to answer any questions you have on the ordinance itself.
Council, you have any questions for Mr. Hanks?
I think we
Amen.
raised a question asking how common this is across all the other cities in Oregon.
Yeah, it's can't find there is no exact reference website to get that. It's hard to come by, but cities have been doing some polling of each other, so it's been making the rounds. There's about 60 of the 241 cities. There's 241 cities in incorporated cities in Oregon. About 60 have a public safety support fee. There's a mixture of those that operate police and fire. So it's not a complete apples to apples, but yes, it's a growing tool. And the challenge really is, and we've talked about it here before, the reason that it's more of a common revenue tool for cities is that cities don't have a role in the property tax revenue stream, which is the number one revenue stream in a general fund of almost all cities. About half of $1 million of our 2 million in the general fund comes from property taxes. And those are very hamstrung by Measure 5 and Measure 50 and have been for decades. And that is really the kind of I've drawn it on the whiteboard in kind of work sessions is, the revenue side of the general fund goes up about 3 to 5% a year, and we don't have much to say about that. And the expense side goes up 10 to 12% a year. So that delta, that gap between those is the challenge that, that we're the revenue subcommittee and now fully with council is trying to tackle with a combination of expense and revenues. But
Anyone else with questions? Not Councilor Lyman.
So roughly 25% of the cities are using this mechanism, but not all of them have police departments or municipal courts. So there's a percentage.
Some only have fire, most have police, and fewer have fire. Fire, is more and more in districts, but there are a lot of municipal fire departments. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's not 100% apples to apples, but it is a growing. I know there are 5 or 6 cities that are in a similar stage that we're in going through enacting one. So I would expect that number of 60 to increase over time. But they are every city has a different mix of services they provide in the general fund and a different mix in the even within public safety.
Councilor Wells, did you have a question?
So the ones that you are aware of that have enacted some sort of public safety support fee, do you know what that fee is?
There's a wide range. It's what they're trying to solve, with the fee. The highest, there is one community that is $43 for each police and $43 for
Per month?
per month. Yeah. So it ranges. I think the lowest is $5 or $6. I didn't get all of the data. There was a lot of League of Oregon Cities is trying to compile something that's a little more reliable in terms of getting to the statistics and doing an average and a mean and all of that. But I think 12 to 20 is common. I think some of the cities that have less also have a local option levy and a fee. That's another another tool that some have chosen. Some have urban renewal, some don't. There's a lot of differences between what tool sets each community has chosen.
Where basically all cities are struggling with the same thing.
There's only a few tools. Is really what it comes down to, and these a fee, on using the utility bill as kind of a mechanism for a general services or a city services fee is a growing tool.
And anecdotally from the mayor's groups that I belong to, I'm hearing exactly the same thing, that more and more cities are saying, we've got to come to our citizens and ask for support on this if we're going to keep the level of current service intact. Any other questions? Mr. Hank.
And again, this is the item that is in front of us here is the ordinance, not the fee amount resolution. Yeah.
Exactly. This is only giving us the mechanism to establish the fee.
I thought I saw a hand up.
Is
over
there? No?
I was trying to decide whether to ask some questions that we've asked before and probably know the answer to, but maybe the audience doesn't.
Sure.
But I don't know how much, well, it's a little more related to the question about the service that we're talking about, which is our public safety. And the fact that we do that in-house now. And one of the things that a lot of people want to know is what would be the other options if we didn't have public safety in-house? And we've talked about that a little bit about the options with contracting with the sheriff or just not having anything. I don't know if it's appropriate right now to ask Adam to speak about that a little bit, or if it would be better somewhere else in the conversation.
I can touch on it a little bit. I think I put a big asterisk next to it in that we haven't gone out and researched it because council hasn't directed staff to do that. So, really.
That's a whole other layer that we would have to look at.
As you say, Counselor, we have talked about that generally, and I have some anecdotal things I could share. But really early on, a year and a half, looking back to those statements in the budget messages, the council, when they created the subcommittee and then stepping through the subcommittee, the charge to staff was to develop options to provide revenue to fund the existing service delivery model, right? Which you say as we say, we're a department, we do that in-house. To look at, there are several cities in our region. They're throughout the state. They come and go. The prior city that I was in before here had a contract and terminated it. They did not feel, different region, not Lane County Sheriff's, different region. And some are very happy with the level of service. Some are not. It depends on what they're going from. If they're going from no service to a service, often that works well. If they're going from an in-house service to a sheriff's intergovernmental agreement style contract, it can be a mixed bag. And it really depends on what the expectations of each community are and what their challenges are from a public safety standpoint. Do they are they needing and wanting traffic safety? Typically, that is something that a sheriff's contract doesn't do much of. So in order to really answer that question, we would have to, I'd need some direction from council to really make that a focused effort to say, okay, bring back a full review, apples to apples comparison between what we have now for that 800,000 plus the municipal court, and compare that to other, I would say, conceptually feasible options, because we also know, as the mayor said at the outset, there are two existing contracts that the Lane County Sheriff's Office has. I'm not sure they're in a position of taking on another. I'm not sure if they're interested in taking on it. It would require mutual partnership for that to occur. We can, provide some anecdotal. I could say anecdotally, it's a different type of service, local municipal policing versus county sheriff. They have a different charge, a different way of doing public safety, not right or wrong, better or worse, just a different set of ways they go about things and what they approach and what they don't, what things they follow up on. Mostly it's reactive, not proactive. And the two cities I'm aware of in the region are quite a bit more expensive than how we are funding our department right now. I would say from my experience in a number of different cities, this is pretty efficient for the level of service. We're always looking at, what we can do on the cost side to be more efficient. Chief Larson has we talked about it just last meeting, has a small cities. There's 6 entities in the region that are kind of the small city police departments. We now meet regularly. We're looking at shared training. We're looking at being on the same, using the same guns so we can have the same training. So standardization across the region of those entities, as many shared procurement opportunities as we can. So really looking at regionalization is almost a cooperative. So there are a lot of different variations. I bring that up to say that there isn't just doing it ourselves in a contract with sheriffs. There's a lot of small permutations within that. But to really provide the council and the community with something that is as close to apples, we would need to do quite a bit more digging and talking with, I'd have to set up some meetings with the sheriff. We'd have to talk that through about how they incorporate the dispatch part and, making sure that we really, numbers that make sense to our particular situation and what set of services we say are non-negotiable and what are negotiable services that would come into that kind of a conversation. So hopefully not too much dancing around the question, but a little, because we haven't really put it all down yet.
Counselor Wells,
I'm not sure this.
do you have a question?
I
for
do,
Mr.
but
Hanks?
I didn't know if this was the right time to be having this discussion. It does involve this.
This is a question
Okay,
for
fine.
Mr. Hanks.
All right, goes without saying, a lot of us have been contacted in the last couple
Okay,
of weeks.
all right.
When would be the best time to do
We
that?
can do
Mayor?
this when we discuss after the motion is made.
So
That's the discussion.
So I guess that trying to it's a little
It's-
mushy, understand. So we're talking about the ordinance, and do we want to have that tool there?
Right.
And the next agenda item is the amount.
Is
And
the
so how do you want to
question-
frame that?
The question is, if we're going to vote in this ordinance, what are the other options that we have considered? I mean, a lot of the people in this room do not know that, what a levy is, or
Okay.
what an ordinance is, how it's voted in. Is this the time to talk about it? Or do we vote the ordinance in or not, and
Yeah,
then talk about it? I don't.
The ordinance only at this point establishes our ability to establish a fee or not. It doesn't say how much of a fee, and like all of the other fees for service that we have within the city, it will be reevaluated on a yearly basis, on an annual basis at least. It does not preclude the option for the local option levy.
I understand that.
That could still go into effect. But this lets us, we could say, council could say, we establish the fee at 0. If that's the viewpoint of the council.
I understand.
Okay.
We are establishing a fee.
That
and
gives
there's-
us the opportunity to establish. Yes.
if I could speak a little to the alternatives, really, as I said in the opening, the primary tools are a fee, this public safety support fee or something similar, or a local option levy. And a local option levy, just real bare bones, is that's a state law thing. We don't get to make it up how we want. That you establish a pennies per thousand, you establish an amount, and you put together ballot language that goes to the county. It goes on, on a ballot. There's you have to work yourself backwards timeline wise to hit the due dates and everything, but it's a 5-year operating levy. So that money then is put on the property tax bill of everybody within the city limits boundary. And then that is taxed, and then we collect, the county collects that on our behalf, and that comes in as with our property taxes, but as a segmented amount. So, and that's valid for 5 years, and then it has to be revoted by the public. So that is the primary other tool that has been talked about throughout.
And I understand that.
Is
I
that
don't
what you
think
were asking, Counselor Hanks?
Sort of.
No?
Well, it's really not a question. And so I would guess 90% of the people sitting in this audience have no idea what the difference between a levy and a fee is, and what are the distinguishing characteristics between the two.
The
And is
levy?
it, well,
Okay,
you
go
want
ahead.
to take it?
No, you
Okay.
go ahead.
No,
Go right ahead.
No, my point was, is this the time to talk about the differences?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about putting an ordinance in place or not. As the mayor said, it can be 0, so you aren't affecting a revenue stream yet. So maybe reframe so I could help answer.
So I think what you're asking, and you correct me if I'm
Hard
wrong,
to frame it in a
But
question. Mayor Bell.
you're with a local option levy. That would be, we would put the language forward and it would go on the ballot
Which would be
and-
voted on.
and which would be voted on by the community. That's, I believe that's what you're
Yes.
asking.
And the fee,
An ordinance.
Right.
Is not, no, a fee is not voted.
that's what I wanted to
That's what
get out.
you were asking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
very, no, very
I thought
clearly,
that's what you were asking.
a local option levy requires, by state law, requires going out to vote. A fee imposed is legally able to be done by virtue of an ordinance and a resolution, legally able to be done by the governing body. It does not go out for a vote.
By
Yeah.
those, and it would be established by the council as representatives, because we are voted into these positions by you in the community.
So I think a prior conversation we had was kind of this representative democracy versus direct democracy, and that came up in some of the open houses is, and that is a inherent difference between these two tools. Functionally, administratively, there's some differences between them. There's obviously quite a delay in when that money would, whatever funds are raised would come in. There is always the idea that you put it on a future in May or in November and it's a no. And you probably then should have cut, we have to balance a budget. So if it's a no, then we're retroactively already in a hole and we would be scrambling to either cut or implement a fee, which, other communities have had really challenges where they've had a no vote on a local options levy and then a council still needs to put a fee together and they're putting a fee for something that people voted no on, similar with a different tool. So then the alternate is draconian cuts. That's really the, and that's the service level conversation, that kind of goes with both agenda items. Yeah, it is hard to distinguish. These are, this kind of straddles the two because they're obviously linked agenda items. So I don't know if that helps with any context.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes, Counselor Smith.
If we had chosen to put the levy forward at this time instead of considering a fee, is there a ballpark cost and the timeline for when we would actually see any revenue if it passed?
Yeah, well, it depends on the, moving backwards by the due dates that the county clerk has for getting, you have to have a ballot title. It has to be approved by legal. You have to have, there's a number of steps to get something on a ballot. So at this point, it'd be, you'd be choosing either the November or the following May, to get it on the ballot. After it passes, I mean, it's a year and a half-ish before money would show. So it's one thing that the mayor and I have talked about, and it kind of goes concurrent with one of the other actions that the subcommittee put forward, is when we do the review of our urban renewal agency, we're getting that consultant to help with the eventual closeout of that urban renewal agency and providing some financial estimates for what that means when that valuation goes away from that separate district and gets put back into the main pool of the city. What is the beneficial property tax impact of that? Same consultant I've already had discussions with would be able to provide us a really good, that same consultant does local option levy work. We can have them work up kind of a white paper and a theoretical, here's what a local option levy, here's how it works, and here's the timeline, here's all the things that you need to watch out for, here's how you establish the pennies per thousand, and obviously the strategy of getting them passed is a whole different thing. I'm not talking about that. That's a different community outreach kind of thing. It isn't a staff thing. But this summer, we definitely have already talked with the URA consultant to say, hey, could you add on and do give us a kind of a more than what we're talking about here, but not a full, not with a theoretical one, white paper on making sure we're all on the same page for exactly how a local option levy works and when the revenues, the timeline of revenues.
I will add at this point in time, because I have been doing a fair amount of research. There is a similar size city in Southern Oregon, Josephine County, that did defund their police department a number of years ago. And what they saw at that point in time was a huge increase in crime, which doesn't surprise any of us here. It got bad enough that what they just relied on their county sheriff's department to patrol the city, to come when called. Unfortunately, like many county sheriff's department, the funding was cut. And so there weren't very many sheriffs to go around that county. So they saw their level of service dramatically decrease. Their solution ultimately, because of the increase in their business sector, in their neighborhoods, they found it untenable. So the citizens of that community, not the city government, but the citizens of that community formed a citizens patrol, which is still in effect, as I understand it today. They manage it. They have hired a coordinator. So this is a community organization. That means that it falls back on the community members. Now, I don't think, from what I have read and understood, that those community members can actually function as police. If they see a crime in progress, they still would have to call in their county sheriff to manage that. But that is one way that another small city in Oregon is managing that. So for those of you that are here as community members, that's something that you can consider. If you elect at some point, or to tell us as council that you don't want to have a fee and that you're not able to support the public safety of our community. It's just something that I discovered as I was tunneling through. So at this point, if there are no more questions, well, entertain a motion to move forward on establishing the ordinance A-258, which is the establishment of the ability to put forward a public safety support fee.
Mayor Bell, I move to adopt ordinance A-258, an ordinance establishing a public safety support fee.
I'm sorry, there was what
they want to speak about whether the fee is levied or not the amount of the fee. So if you have a citizen who would like to speak.
Okay. All right. So that is all right. Would you come up to the podium and
Mayor Bell, do we need to withdraw the motion?
we didn't get any.
Actually, I lost the phone call, so
If you could state your name and not your street address, but that you live in Coburg, that would be appreciated.
Certainly. My name is Dr. Susan Pearson, and I live in Coburg and have for 3 or 4 years now. A lovely community, and I'm completely supportive of our police department. Good evening, neighbors. I'm sorry my back is to some of you. Council, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Since I'm not a public speaker by trade, I'm going to rely on notes if that's okay. My concern today is not about the substance of the proposed $20 per month public support fee, but about the process.
Can I just stop you at
Sure.
this point? There is no fee established at this point, so the dollar.
Is it proposed? You're
The-
about to vote on the
No.
ability to have
What
it.
what we are voting on first is the ability to establish a fee. The fee itself has not yet been established.
I understand that. My input has to do with also the levy option. And actually, if you just let me
Okay, go ahead.
finish, I'm not talking about $20. And
Okay.
a support fee, and I'm completely supportive of having a police department. I'm just not sure our utility bill for our seniors is where to do it. So it's the process that was used to bring this forward. And I don't think a lot of residents have been able to understand or respond to it. And my remarks are not reflective just of my view, but a lot of my community members that I've talked to over the last few days. And a lot of them are here tonight, some couldn't make it. Residents received, pardon me, notice postmarked March 9th that this fee would be presented at the March 10th council meeting. That's one day's notice. And the same fee is now scheduled for a vote at this meeting today on April 14th. As of yesterday, April 13th, the minutes for the March meeting were not available. And that left the public without an official record of what's being discussed or how the proposal evolved. For a fee of this scale, the lack of timely documentation and communication sort of underlines transparency and public trust, which I find a shame. The justification offered for assessing a fee, that the public has used fees before, and we talked about that tonight with the council subcommittee. The tree and the parks and the open space fees don't really reflect the magnitude of what's being proposed, and bear with me for one sentence. The tree fees 2 and the open space is 5, but a $20 monthly fee is not comparable in scale. And it's significant enough that residents reasonably expect the opportunity to vote on it. Several of us, in order to get information, watched the video recording of last month's meeting. And during that time, a council member stated that the choice to pursue a fee rather than a levy was based on timing and the cost of running a levy election in a non-election year. But FY 2026 is within an election year. Choosing a fee now with the stated intention of maybe doing a levy later effectively removes the public from the decision-making process on a major recurring financial obligation. A levy would allow residents to weigh the need, the cost, and the long-term implications. And I'll beat on everybody's door to support the police. A fee of this size implemented without a vote sets a precedent that large ongoing revenue measures can bypass the electorate entirely. I urge the council to delay action on this fee and instead pursue a levy in this election year, giving residents the transparency, time, and democratic participation that a measure of this scale deserves. And I thank you kindly for your consideration.
Thank you.
I want to know if there's ability to respond and comment.
Not
Not at.
to the speaker, but if there's Q&A amongst you or me, that's appropriate.
Well, it's just a clarification of what the speaker said, so I don't know how I could just comment to you without referencing what was said.
I mean, you can reference it. You just can't ask, I guess that from a
No, I wasn't gonna-
standpoint, you
I
can't.
wasn't going to ask
Oh, yeah.
her specifically, but I was the person that made the statement in that meeting that said the reason I supported the resolution and the ordinance is primarily of timing, that we could not put the vote up for a levy and receive the funds in a timely fashion for this current budget. Not that I was not saying that we couldn't put it up. It's just that the implementation of that and the collection of that and the process and the timing just would not help us in this budget cycle. And therefore, we'd have to make the cuts, most likely to the police department, that we all felt we couldn't do and recover in 1 to 2 years. Referencing that, I'm of the opinion that supporting the resolution and the ordinance, with the caveat that when we are able to put it up for a local option, that we do that we sunset this as part of that motion. So that gives us time to budget and communicate, and then do the levy. If it passes, then we can receive the funds without interruption of service.
Is there anyone? Oh, Counselor Smith?
I would appreciate it if we could clarify when this information regarding considering an ordinance for a levy, when that was first made public. I know that it went out in the water bills this year recently, and I think that was a very effective tool. But I think it would be good to clarify when we actually started discussing this and when it did become public information.
Yeah, the difference, I suppose the big asterisk is the difference between, what's on the city website and council packets and subcommittee, materials. But it was probably most formally, probably the cleanest answer to that is the December council meeting, December 25. Going backwards a little bit from Councilor Lehman's comments there on the timing of the operating levy, when it was first discussed of kind of the fork in the road, which are we, which are you directing staff to pursue and develop and build out for your consideration? It was, that was last summer. So I think in that time, we were talking about, a special election, or, when the next one is, and you have to back those up about 3 to 4 months in order to get the ballot measure in by the due dates. And so I think it's a moving timeline for both things, for both the commentary about when a local option levy would be most appropriate, in the election timeline, and then also when it was more public record, and clearly from a legal standpoint, public record is the website and packets and all of that. Obviously, more widespread, public outreach and information was later than that.
So I will say that I started having public meetings last fall about the financial situation, specifically about the financial situation in Coburg. I had 2 in October and 1 in November. And they were varied between morning, noontime, and a weekend. And people did come. They were advertised, they were posted, and people did come at that point. And public safety was a discussion point in those meetings.
There was a town hall also, was there not?
We've had 2 town halls, plus, well, actually there were 3.
Yeah.
Mhm. In the last several weeks.
Just a
Counselor
question
Smith?
going forward, and I understand the frustration. it might be helpful in the future to pursue other legal ways to get the word out, that it's hard to figure, I know it's hard to figure out what is going to be timely. What went out in the utility bill seemed to be the first that people have heard of it. And so maybe going forward in the future, we could pursue looking at, we've learned a little bit. We could pursue looking at how it's dispersed, even though we have followed the timelines and it's been public information and there's been all of that. It's still sometimes hard for the public. I mean, you can put it out there, but we can't control where it lands and who hears it. So maybe we can look at processes for information going forward and what works best in input over the next year from community as to what vehicles are legal that work.
Yeah, just kind of recalling that, and I agree. There can always be more, and we had the same thing with the Coleman Street project with just those neighbors. It went out with people didn't receive it. It was sent out, but and we had updates on the website and social media. So it's always a challenge to reach that. Our channels are limited, and the timelines are challenging as well. It was presented to council in December from the subcommittee with a presentation, not decisions to pursue, not anything. So the January meeting was a decision to direct staff to pursue the development of the ordinance and bring that back. That takes some time. And then also in January, council wanted to see the materials that we were going to put out in the utility bill. So that meant that draft of the FAQ and the information that was going out to the public came back to council in the February meeting, which is why it went out to the public in the March meeting. So, it's hard because time clicks by, and the challenge of how to fit all of that in and still meet the meeting packet deadlines. There's a variety of deadlines and a variety of inputs that people want to have in it, and we also, I think, in this round focused on some live town hall meetings. Flipping that and having more direct mail noticing, would that have been better? Maybe. We did direct mail noticing on Coleman project, and it wasn't very effective. That's it's apples and oranges. Those are similar but different things. But it is a challenge to reach everyone with adequate time because we've been working on that with a targeted goal of having some direction so we can put the budget together. The budget by law goes and is presented by the first day of the budget committee meeting, which is a week from tonight. So we have to have some decisions made before I can put a proposed budget together. So there's a lot of competing deadlines, I guess, and yeah, we can always improve. It also means that there may be a need to talk about slowing something down, but there are repercussions for that because we have to make some expenditure decisions. As we're moving, so it's not all static as it would be if it's a brand new thing. If we were building a new city hall, it would be a general obligation bond. You would have plenty of time because you just take as long as you need to take. We're talking about funding continuing operations of an existing service that's different than a new capital project that you can kick a month out. You can build in more time. So not to justify the timing of what went out the door, but I think there's just a lot of moving parts, and we can always get better.
Is there anyone else signed up to speak? No, is there anyone else signed up to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi all, I'm Lauren Gauthier and I live in Coburg, and I've been here almost 3 years in October. My question is, or a bigger question is, and mind you, I have not been to these meetings, so tell me, But in what I'm hearing is in December of 2025, you realized that you needed more money. Am I correct?
No, you are not correct.
This
No.
gentleman here said on the budget, it was
Yeah.
spoken of in December.
We have been watching the general fund revenue decline for the last 4 to 5 years. It's a slow decline. We started meeting in a revenue subcommittee meeting a year and a
Yeah.
half ago.
Okay, when did you
And-
know that you weren't gonna have enough money? Roughly.
We have known for the last several years that there's going to come a point when we are going to be in a budget deficit.
Okay.
We are not yet in a budget deficit.
Right.
There are 241 cities in Oregon. 50% of those cities are either in a budget deficit or budget constraints.
And I
We-
do, and I
we
do
sit-
understand.
We sit in the budget constraint issue at this point. We don't want to get into an absolute deficit.
But normally your public safety is done through your property tax. That-
No, only
No.
portion.
The dialogue.
Yes.
Dialogue, you can speak council and you have 3 minutes to do it.
Okay, then my suggestion is it really should be done because of the amount. That's a lot of money to put on individuals, especially on a budget. And we have had increases over, just since I've been here, so over the 3 years. The $20 is a very large fee to put on someone in a budget. And the other portion is it really should be voted on. And I also want to reiterate, I have no problem with the police department and I have no problems supporting them. And that they should be given the money, whatever it is. It's the way it's being done is my only thing. I think I've taken my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Clarifying questions?
So
Thanks.
what I'm hearing and feeling is that we have a lot of support for the police department. We don't have a lot of support for the process that we are getting to make a decision. And part of that being stuck here is, do we take action to continue the support we have of the police department, knowing that it's not with a public vote, which I think many of us feel it should be in an ideal situation, but we're at a point that to get to that, you'd have to make cuts to the police department before we could get to that point of the collection of funds from a local option. So, I'm in support of what I'm hearing tonight. We're just kind of stuck here making a choice. Do we let the process take precedence at the expense of the circumstance and the outcome that process would bring about, which would be a budget cut?
You had the solution a while ago. We've backed ourselves in the corner. You really need this revenue now, but put a levy together and let us vote on it and sundown that.
Excuse me.
Pardon me, I'll leave.
No,
I
no,
didn't mean to
I'm not
interrupt.
asking you to leave.
You understood it.
Thank you.
So, I support that we have the public input long-term and going forward. When we support the fee, we're doing it not perpetually. We're voting on that every year. If we're going to have a fee and what that fee amount would be, or if we're sunsetting or suspending that fee to go with the process of having local option levy. My feeling is that if we'd had a local option levy, much with the gas tax levy that we had, there was overwhelming support for that. I think this community would support local option fee. And I feel it's a good process to hit that. It's just we don't have time right now to implement that in lieu of the fee in order to collect the funds to allow the current level of service to continue. And I'd hate to, as I stated earlier, if you lose and have to cut your public safety, it's hard to bring it back. Even if you do pass the levy later, you're gonna have officers leave, you're gonna have police chief leave, you have equipment that is not needed and probably sold. So it comes down to, does this community want a police department that's funded at the level that we have? And I think the support's there that that would happen. But unfortunately, I don't think we have the time to pursue that local off-fund levy and get the funds that we need to balance this budget.
But we would have had the time to do it had we decided to, walk through that process from the beginning, which was always my preferred option. We would have had the time to implement the levy, but since the recommendation of the subcommittee was to do it this way, which I understand the recommendation was the recommendation, and we have to evaluate the proposals before us now, understand that. But it's very clear that we would have had the time had we decided to pursue a levy from the beginning. Because this year is an election year. We would have had the time to sort it out.
Perhaps. It takes several years to do that, Counselor Bowman. Counselor Smith and then Counselor Wells, you have.
And I take a bit of issue with what Counselor Bowman said, because as we have been going through the budget process, we have been looking at ways to keep from going into a deficit. Our only options are levies and fees. As it became clearer, we started looking at the fees. And as Counselor Lehman said, we ran the risk of losing our public safety because we've already had cuts. They have done everything possible to try to, we've lost personnel. They are doing regional work to save money. So I understand the frustration with feeling like you didn't have a say and you didn't get to vote. But I as a counselor am also frustrated at the fact that we do discuss it. We have the community's best interests at heart. There is a website. There's a meeting every Tuesday. There's the first Tuesday of every month, we have council meeting. There's packets available for pickup with police reports and everything we discuss. We do our very best as counselors to get the information out there. But if people choose not to take the opportunity to access it, then people end up feeling very frustrated with the decisions we make. And we were running the risk of losing public safety officers to the point they're not going to be viable. So with no input from the community through this entire process until the last 2 weeks at meetings, as a counselor, I did the best I felt I could to continue to keep Cobourg a safe place to live going forward as budget concerns become more and more obvious and we learn what it is going to take. As Counselor Lehman said, we will consider a levy and there does seem to be support. But if we had waited 2 years to start bringing in income to support public safety, we were in danger of losing our police department. And I don't know about you, but if we don't have a police department and we have a sheriff's office that only can come when they have nothing better to do, our city will change drastically. And if we lose our police department, there's a very good chance we will not be able to build a new one. So that being said, I do understand the frustration, but as a counselor, I'm very frustrated that I feel like we're being accused of trying to pull a fast one and we didn't think it through. And we're just trying to nail people with fees. We are not. We have put a lot of time into this. There has been a lot of public discussion. And so I would hope that you can trust that we have your best interests at heart and we're doing the best we can, just like in our private lives, to deal with the amazing rising costs. The city of this city home is no different than your private home. There's tough decisions to make. And we do the best we can over a period of time with the information we get from the public, but we don't get the information until people are angry and upset, and we have to make a decision to keep the budget balanced. Councilor Wells.
Well, two things. I mean, we have, I understand it, we have fiscal year 2026, general fund balance of $1,900,000. Is that correct?
No.
Am I not reading that right? Okay. Well, but we are not in a budget deficit at this point.
Yeah.
So from a, I can show some general fund stuff, but the financials are in the back that we would go over at the end of the meeting, at the very end. No, the fund balance for the general fund is about a $2 million fund. The fund balance is depending upon the month, but right now it's about $300,000.
And our burn rate on that right now, without passing any future increases, any fee increases, is what? I mean, how are we depleting that?
How are you defining a burn rate?
Well,
We don't
I mean,
have
if we're
burn rate.
depleting the general fund.
It depends on what each year we're doing different things from a revenue and expense scenario. So we buffered the 1.5 FTE reduction in police last year, saved about $200,000. That eliminated costs, but it obviously reduced service levels. So, when we've talked about fund balance targets, we've talked about minimums that we have to maintain for our debt service that we have. We have minimum debt service requirements for that fund balance. So it's not going zero. We have a minimum requirement. So in a deficit, in an operating deficit, is not that graph going down to zero. It has to be at least 300,000, or we're in default of our debt.
The reason I'm asking that, and I understand it's a moving target somewhat, is that what if, I mean, maybe a solution to this, if there's an immediate need for money, which we've been talking about, maybe we, approve a lesser fee instead of $20 with the commitment that we will pursue a levy at the same time.
Can I
Question that I could ask?
Well, it is, but it's sort of out of order. Right now, we are not discussing how much the fee will be.
Only the ability to collect it.
That is correct.
Okay.
So you're not wrong. We're just
timing
hold
wise
on to that just a little bit. So.
With that being said, I move to call the question.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Counselor Myers, would you like to?
Yes, Mayor Bell, I move to adopt ordinance A-258, an ordinance establishing a public safety support fee.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Counselor Myers and a second by Counselor Lehman to adopt A-258, an ordinance establishing a public safety support fee. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
We have 5 in favor, 1 against. The motion passes 5-1. Thank you very much. Okay, next agenda item is the public hearing on resolution 2026-10, a resolution setting the public safety support fee. And I'll take a breath, as I'm sure everyone else will. I will open the public hearing at, come on, phone, 7:17 on resolution 2026-10, a resolution setting the public safety support fee. We have a staff report from Mr. Hanks.
I will keep this one very brief. Most all of the content in the staff report is a subset of the content from the ordinance. So these have very much blended together. The primary difference in the staff report for this resolution, you have suggested motions, and this gets to the suspended sort of question that Councilor Wells started on in the prior item of approving the resolution as written, or another alternative motion is there if you individually want to put forward a motion for a different fee amount than what is currently contained in the draft resolution. Trying to just quickly go through, I don't think that there is anything really in this that we haven't already covered. I will say kind of on the long term, there's been questions about kind of when we knew, how we knew, all of those kind of things about the general fund. The slide that I had earlier on the budget messages, those were each budget messages from FY25 and FY26. So from normal person calendar, that comment in the budget message was from April of 2024 and April of 2025. We're next week going to be April of 2026, where I'll have a pretty similar message about the general fund. The other three funds of the city are different. All four funds have their own unique characteristics. And I will also add, and we've talked about it in this meeting, that my predecessor had some messaging in her budget messages about general funds. And if you read any of the 241 budget messages that of the incorporated cities in Oregon, they will have many, many similarities to our budget message about systemic, structural, a lot of different words for the same thing, of a general fund revenue structure that in no way, shape, or form keeps pace with general fund expenses for the services that mostly are mandated to be provided. Some are chosen, and the certain service levels, how much you want to fund in some cities a library, how many days for it to be open, how well you want to maintain your parks, and how much parkland you want, or do you surplus it. Police service, some have fire service, some have a variety of other niche services that they provide. So everybody's general fund is a little bit different. But what is common due to property taxes were mentioned earlier, that the revenue, our property tax revenue for the city, which is a subset of everyone's property taxes. A small, if you look at this, at your property tax bill, there's two line items that go to the city. The rest of them go to mostly to education, some other county entities, and the fire district. That property taxes pay for about 50% of our general fund. The remainder of the revenues in the general fund are a hodgepodge of things, franchises, which we receive franchise revenue in exchange for utilities utilizing the city's rights of way to conduct business, to provide services to people. So that's a very common, between 5 and 7% of gross revenues of those utilities is a franchise fee to the city. That's about a little under $300,000 a year. I talked about the development related fees. If we're not growing, both the property tax revenue growth is very limited, and development related revenue, including SDCs, are limited. We have charges for services. That's our parks fee recently implemented, $5 a month. That's about between $40,000 and $50,000 a year of new revenue, and that was partly how we managed to not do an operating levy and not address that last year, was the combination of that new fee and the reduction of police staffing, the 1.5 full-time equivalent that I mentioned. So, the challenge is simply that general fund revenues, how they are built, how the state allowances for how cities collect general fund revenue, simply do not keep pace at all with expenses in the general fund. So that means you either raise additional revenue to maintain the service levels that you've historically enjoyed and had, or you reduce those service levels. And in the general fund, the predominant expense is people, because it takes people to operate the services, to carry out those services. Our other funds have a lot of capital, water, wastewater, significant public infrastructure that we do. And the capital drives much more of those funds than the general fund. The general fund we have 15.1 people, 7.7 of them are in the general fund. So over half of our total people are funded through the general fund. So most of those expenses for people are also outside of our control. We have very limited ability to affect those change other than reducing people. We can't keep the people but lower the cost. That doesn't work. So just wanted to kind of go backwards a little bit in the longer picture of that 3+ years of knowing that we have deficits. We also had a general fund project, the Pavilion Park project, that had a grant funded partially, 60% grant, 40% local. And, that took of the last 2 years, that was a chunk of any sort of kind of quasi discretionary funding in the general fund. That's complete. We got our full grant allotment. We got that reimbursed. So that's behind us now. So next week, when I talk about general fund, there will be almost no capital. We do have debt in the general fund for this building, and we have people, and then we have the materials and services that the people need to use to buy the services. And that's it. It really is a pretty straightforward breakdown, and property taxes take care of about half of it. And what we're looking for is a solution, whether it be a public safety support fee, whether it be a local option levy, or something else. I don't know what that something else could be. To fill that gap and maintain the service levels. At least that's the charge that was multiple times directed from council to staff. So, hopefully that helps with a little bit of context, and the staff report is structured with motions that allow you to have the discussion to pick up right where Councillor Wells left off.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hanks?
I actually have a question. I want to make sure that I understand where kind of like what Alan has been doing, understanding exactly where the point is, where we are, that's what I'm looking for, technically supposed to be actually discussing. And I was holding back on some of my comments on that last motion, thinking that after the motion is made and seconded, there's an opportunity for discussion.
A discussion between council members.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's where I was hoping to talk, and I just the last motion, there wasn't an ask for discussing the motion. So I'm hoping that with this one, we make sure to have that discussion
Thank you.
opportunity
Yes.
before just voting.
We did a lot of discussion prior to the
Kind of,
motion.
and I was
You-
kind of
you
holding
are
back for the
correct.
technical place where we are
You-
really supposed to do that. So
Thank you. You are correct. Councillor Lehman.
And I think that discussion is specific to the motion. So That's why it comes after the motion.
That's
Right.
correct.
So a lot of the other discussions, not specific to the motion because it hasn't been made yet, but it's clarifying the information we need to have in order to formulate the motion that we're going to present. So I'm just thinking, how
Do
many
you have
people,
a question for
I do.
Mr. Hanks?
I do have a
Okay.
different way of answering,
Okay.
forming my question than you might have.
Okay.
So how many people do we have in our community?
Population of about
Population.
1,474 is the most recent
Okay.
Portland State estimate.
So whatever motion we have tonight to implement a $20 fee or $15 fee or zero fee, we're probably gonna make X number of those 1,400 and some people very happy and the other ones not very happy. So we're not gonna make everybody happy. I'm concerned sometimes that, be careful what you wish for. On one hand, you wish for a safe community that's got public safety, police officers, the way we've enjoyed in the last number of years. But then when you make a decision not to fund it and it goes away, you're not very happy anymore. For those that vote no on this and you have to cut $200,000 because we don't have that revenue, and you're gonna have the other people very unhappy. So as council members, we are charged with making a decision that we feel is in the best interest of the community. From the perspective that we have from all the discussion and the information we've had over the last number of months and years. What I'm hearing a lot tonight is the process. I think if it were actually up for a vote, my confidence is that this community would support having the same level, but would have liked to have had a voice in that process. So I'm kind of formulating
Is there a question?
there's a
for
question in my
Mr.
future.
Hanks?
There is a question in my future if you let me.
I see. Yeah, okay.
I think it's important to put perspective for that because we have an audience here. I would like to see a motion that allows us to go forward to collect the fee so that we can continue the service in the short term, other than cutting it next month. While that motion guarantees or stipulates that there's a limit of 1 or 2 years to that before we can begin the process to pass a local option levy that will generate the income into our budget that supports that following year without the fee. So the question is.
All right, Councilor Lehman, thank you. I was just getting ready to ask.
Can you clarify the timeline for us by which time we'd have to put the measure up on a ballot to get voted on, and if approved, the timeline to collect that fund so there's not a gap in the loss of funds for that service? And I know there's a distinction between putting it up when there's a general election. It costs less for the city to do that as opposed to a special election. And then you get voter turnout improved in a general election as opposed to a special election.
Yes, or not tonight. I would want to be more definitive for you about the
general.
answers to those. I guess I was prepped to answer a different question that was in
Curveball.
yeah, about how you may want to tweak this resolution to address the first half of what you were talking about. It would be, where we're in April. I think it's theoretically possible to get on the November ballot. I would need to talk with Lane County tax assessor to understand the timing on when the proceeds from that local option levy, whatever the taxing amount that we'd have to first off calculate that, and decide, are we talking about an equivalent? This opens up a whole bunch of other conversation about how do you want to structure and fund the entirety of the general fund? Do you want to have a local option levy take care of public safety completely, and then you change, you subtract other things? There's a lot of different questions that I think I would want to pose to you all to ponder. But it is the November election. The property tax bills go out. So it would be the following year, I'm fairly certain. So that would be November of 27. You know, when the proceeds would come in, right? Which would be halfway through fiscal 28. So not the budget that we're going to be presenting tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, next Tuesday, excuse me.
Is this for Mr.
Yeah,
Hanks?
So the
Okay.
technical question, when we go to frame the motion on the fee, is it for a 1-year fee or can the motion be a 2-year fee?
There's a couple different ways you could do it. If we're going to alter the resolution document itself, we may want to consider putting it on next month's, agenda. So we have a clean, copy of what the wording is, not
The resolution
not
is
as
1-year fee then.
if that's how you want to direct me to alter the resolution.
But
So
the
what you,
ordinance that we just passed, did that specify a time frame or
No.
just, okay,
No,
so
it's
that's
not.
on the resolution.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The instrument would be the resolution. And there's a couple different things there. You don't have to specify anything in the body of the resolution. You can just, request that an agenda item be made to repeal a resolution. You could bring that forward in a year. If you want to kind of pre-address that and get that kind of built in, you could do via motion, make a motion to approve and direct staff to bring it back, in 12 months from its effective date or, something like that embedded in your motion. Or we could have a, under probably either addition to section 6 or a new section 7 that creates a termination date in the resolution itself. So there's a couple different ways on the mechanics that could be done. I don't know that I necessarily have the most locked in version of that would be amending the actual document and adding that language at the end to say, the effective date is section 6. The resolution take effect immediately upon passage. Rates will be implemented as of July 1, 2026. Either add something to that section or probably better is to add a section 7 that has a termination that gives a specific date by which it terminates.
Or would it be better to put in that the fee will be evaluated on a regular
That
basis?
is in the ordinance
Yeah,
that
that's what I thought.
that it's there to be reviewed. It doesn't say automatically increase, doesn't say decrease. It just says annual review, which is consistent language with the tree fee from the mid 2000s. Also the park and open space, we purposefully have developed the ordinance language to be consistent across these non-utility type fees, these service fees. So they all have the same language, and it hasn't come up yet in conversation, but I'll just throw it in there because they are the same language in those ordinances, including the one that you just passed. That also has the low income assistance component to it. So all of these fees have that same language. So if you qualify for the city's low income assistance program, it's not just the water and wastewater fees, it's the tree fee, parks, and this new fee as well. So just throw that out there. So those are, I think, the options that you have if that's the direction council as a whole want to go.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks. Are there any other questions for Mr.?
Oh, no.
I will. Now, did I open the public hearing? I thank you. I thought I did. I kind of lost track there for just a moment. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
There is not.
Is there anything that staff would like to add that has not already been added? None? No other questions for staff before a motion is considered and deliberations after the motion conversation? I will close the public hearing.
Wait till she closes it, okay.
Not trying to ignore you over there. I just can't see all of you at the same time. I will close the public hearing at 7:36.
Madam Mayor.
Wait, what? What do we need? Are you gonna make a
Close the hearing.
motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So for the
Yes,
purpose of furthering discussion, I'll throw out a motion and then we can discuss it.
then we can discuss. Thank you very much.
Okay, I move to adopt resolution 2026-10 as resolution setting the public safety support fee at an amount of $20 per month for 2 fiscal years, with the stipulation that the public service fee be placed on the ballot for public vote on a local option levy for public safety. End of motion. Now we can have discussion.
Well.
If I get a second.
Yeah, we'll wait for that.
My
Is there a
question
second?
is because
Is there a
we-
second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Council. We have a motion by Counselor Lehman and a second by Counselor Engebretson. I will call for a vote at this.
Legal
Oh,
discussion.
You get to discuss.
Mayor Bell, I also maybe want to, hopefully don't not confuse it, but
All right.
motions, which we haven't had a whole lot of these kind of things come up in the
With
time
addition.
I've been here in the 3 years, but typically motions, you try and avoid compounding.
Right.
Yeah. So this may, but I understand the intent, and I'm not sure that this is automatically one that needs to be reformulated, but that is going through my head and trying to understand the fiscal year part. I think is a clean connection in a motion. I think the third piece makes the motion kind of a compound thing. I'm not certain that that's the best way to, right. Usually that you, but I understand what you're trying to accomplish. So I just want to throw that out there before you get into too much more. If there is maybe a way to amend or kind of clarify that takes kind of the having 3 variables,
Okay.
approving it.
With the approval of the person who seconded to reconsider, I'll withdraw mine and place another motion on the table.
Works for me.
Okay. So with this motion, there's a stipulation that there's a second motion coming. Okay, I move to adopt resolution 2026-10, a resolution setting the public safety support fee at an amount of $20 per unit per month for 1 year.
When you're from its effective date or from today?
From its effective date.
Which is today, isn't it?
So the effective
No.
date, you are right. It shall take effect immediately upon passage. Rates will be implemented as of July 1.
Is the
be-
effective date today? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
just clarify which date you want it to
The
be.
effective date that it is passed.
That'd be tonight.
So
Yeah.
effective 1 year from today.
Yep.
Do we have a second? Hearing none, then the motion will not move forward.
Are we able to make another motion at this time?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution 2026-10 as a resolution setting the public safety support fee at an amount of $20 per unit per month.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion by Counselor Smith and a second by Counselor Myers to adopt resolution 2026-10, a resolution setting the public safety support fee. Their council discussion. Counselor Engebretson.
Yeah, well, I don't want to read all of my notes that I brought for tonight, but you know, definitely want to acknowledge the fact that, as other folks have real quick, that we know that there's some people here that felt like they just heard about it, and it feels really rushed to folks that didn't see some of the other flyers or some of the other outreach. So I think, you know, want to just acknowledge that can feel really frustrating to people. And I think this is a problem that has occurred with city council. I've lived in town for like 20 years.
Council, this should be directed to
Okay,
us
yeah.
as counselors.
Oh, all right, all right. Well, all right then. So I think it's difficult for the community. I understand that. But you know, as we all know, we've been talking about it for a couple of years. So it's hard. We just have to keep working on trying to figure out the best way to communicate with people so they actually hear about it and feel like they've had time to come and learn more about it before we're actually in the decision stage. As far as this particular motion, if we leave it like this, we are required, or we are supposed to review the fee every single year, every single budget year. At which point, if we felt that the fee was going to be so big that it would be untenable for people to pay for, we'd have to come up with a different solution. You know, it's not put in, what I'm trying to say is it's not put in place forever. We have to evaluate it every year. I think what Counselor Lehman was trying to get at with his motion was just giving a little more assurance to our community members about how serious we are about continuing this conversation. This is not the end of the conversation about public safety and how much the community can still afford to pay, but rather I think this is the beginning of that conversation, because we all know that there's not just pressure on our general fund we're not just having a hard time paying for public safety, but we're also going to have other expenses in some of our other funds, like our sewer, that's also going to require us to have hard conversations in the coming 2, 3, 5 years, as we find that some of our sewer infrastructure is aging out and is no longer available to be used. Its useful life will be over. So we'll have more budget problems besides just trying to figure out if we can afford to pay for public safety. So all I'm trying to say is, yeah, I think that's where Mr. Lehman was going with putting something in the motion to just give the public a little more assurance that it's not just going to be a fee that's here forever, plus it will probably add to it, you know. I think that's what the public is really worried about right now. And they have, obviously, a lot of people have expressed the desire to vote on it. So I don't know if there's a way we can figure out a way to put it in a motion where we give a little bit more assurance to people or not, but that's my thought about what we're doing. We have it is built into the system that we reevaluate it every year, but is there a way we could put a little more assurance in maybe for the community?
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lehman?
Well, you do a pretty good job of reading part of my mind, but not all of it. So yes, I was doing that to address how serious we were about how difficult this process and decision is for $20 a month. But absent having the ability to put it in the motion prior to that motion about the stipulation of having a local option levy, we were all talking about, well, we could follow up that motion with that motion. And that's my intent, is to try to bind us to a motion that gives assurances to the community that we will hear their voice at the ballot box. They can decide if we're going to have a police department or not. So that's why I had the motion for 1 year, because it forces us to that decision now, rather than just let it be evaluated after a year.
Counselor Wells?
Good question. And would we have to have another resolution to establish the?
We need
Well,
to be
okay,
talking to each
would
other.
we have to have another resolution in order to pursue a levy It would seem so. I mean,
No,
no, we-
what we would do as council is direct staff to explore that option and bring that information back to us in terms of
So there-
timeline and cost to go
So there would be
resources.
no guarantee then that we would ever have the opportunity to vote on the pursuit of a levy then. Okay, I guess,
We as council,
well, I'll put it
I'm
this
sorry.
way. Two things. One, I think, due respect, I think the $20 is too high. And I think we've heard that from a number of people, both here tonight and outside of this meeting. I would be personally in favor of a $10 fee. It doesn't quite get to where we want to go. I would also like to have a sunset on that. Like John is alluding to,
Lehman,
I'm sorry, Counselor Lehman, and then a commitment or a guarantee or a conditional approval subject to being able to, put this on a levy. I don't know if you can do that, but I personally would not be in favor of just simply voting for a $20 per month fee without, or even a $10 per month fee without the condition that we also put this on a levy come next November. I don't know how you do that. Pragmatically, I don't know how you would do that.
I believe, and Mr. Hanks, correct me if I'm wrong, but we could make a separate motion asking or stating that we will evaluate that it is our intent to put this to have a local option levy before the public on the November ballot. I don't know if it's feasible to get it on a November ballot.
So I can I'll try and put my hat on as parliamentarian, so I'm not staff in
Thank
this.
you.
I'm parliamentarian, which is a role that city attorneys would play in this because you have a motion on the table. But, the mechanics are that, you can do a lot of things by motion. So the resolution, you'll have, there's a motion on the floor. So you have to decide on that unless someone accepts an amendment and you alter that. But the binding the resolution to another action of council, that's binding a future council. So you can do exactly what Mayor Bell described as you can ensure you make a motion, not just informal staff direction, but a motion to direct staff to bring back a timeline and merits or process for placing a public safety specific local option levy on a future ballot by some date certain, by September 1 or by something to give us time to pull all that together and come back at a future council meeting. At that time, then council has information and then can make a motion to direct a development of ballot title. So there is a process, and I don't know if September, you could at the earliest, at the earliest possible, council date, which would be a few. So there's my parliamentarian hat. I'll take that back off. Because I think you can't get there exactly as simply as binding, tying one to the other, but you can do it by whatever you do with the resolution and then follow up motions to direct staff to bring something to you. So we have a fresh agenda item that nails that.
Counselor Smith.
Yeah, and Counselor Lehman, or Counselor Wells, I appreciate, the discussion of the fee amount, but I do feel that the Revenue Committee as well as council has discussed dollar amounts for quite some time. And I know one of the concerns in the ad hoc committee was fees are difficult and sensitive to that. But to put a fee on and reduce it to the point where it's not going to do what's needed to be done. So the $10 a month, I mean, we looked at many different levels. And when we looked at the $20, part of the reasoning for that was if we are going to levy a fee, we need to be upfront with the public with the fact that we're going to levy a fee that does what it's supposed to do. And if we cut it because there wasn't the process at this point for the vote, I feel like we're telling the public, fine, we'll do $10 to kind of pacify, but it's not going to do what was intended to do. And so it's almost a moot point. Either, you know, if we do a fee and we reduce it by half, the whole intent of the fee, we're telling the public this is enough, and it's not.
Doesn't that keep us incentivized to
I think
pursue the levy though? I mean,
think
it keeps our feet to the
we're
fire.
incentivized to do the levy, and I think there are two different things. It's not the amount we're asking for, it's if we need to put a fee on to sustain until, as we all know, until we can, and we discussed that. To put a levy on was not something we didn't want to do to just give the public no opportunity. We're putting the fee on to sustain us until we can look at other options in the future that are more acceptable. And so if we reduce the fee to the point where if we have to still reduce staff, then we're saying, okay, we'll compromise and only do $10, but then we got to go to the public and say, well, it wasn't enough. And we can do a levy. Our hands are not tied. And I think there's great, I know personally, I would love to do a levy, but we didn't have time to sustain services and wait for the levy to pay. And so this $20 fee, and like Mr. Hank said, if you're low income, if there's a hardship, that all of those fall in line with reducing that fee for people who truly it's a hardship. But I don't feel comfortable putting a $10 fee forward and then they say, well, you still laid off cops and now we don't have the services you promised us by levying a fee. So yes, I do like the intent of supporting the motion that's on the table now and voting for that. And then for sure, even tonight, if we choose to direct staff to pursue a levy, I have no problem with that. I think that's the best solution in the long run. But this was the solution to get us to that.
Counselor Bowman.
I wonder if procedurally and so the public it's clear for the public and clear for us. I wonder if the best course of action would be to vote on this resolution tonight and then pass a separate resolution within the next weeks or whenever we meet regularly, saying that we will commit to a levy by a date certain and have that resolution by itself actually on paper. Because a resolution is a policy statement that the council passes. So I wonder if it's the easiest thing to do to make that its own separate resolution.
It is. It is. You are correct.
I think your question is whether that resolution be made tonight or later.
Well,
I would favor.
it's obviously not possible to draft a resolution
Sure it is.
tonight.
You've done that, you do that by a motion. I think we just do it.
No.
No, an actual resolution would have to be
Yeah.
drafted.
Yeah.
So
You'd have
you-
to- yeah.
again, parliamentarian, as Councilor Bowman says, I think the idea would be to, you've got a motion on the table, then it would be a motion to direct staff to bring back a resolution regarding, a commitment to a local option levy at the next available meeting, which would be next month.
Yes, because I would want to obviously look at the individual
Yeah.
language of the resolution and do all of that. I don't anticipate any surprises. That's just my own procedural thing that I like to dig into. So
And-
I'd want to have that.
And it's a legal requirement as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Counselor Wells.
I just wanted to respond to Counselor Smith. I mean, we did, when we originally started talking about this, we contemplated a $10 a month fee. Yes, we did. It was $10, $15, or $20. I'm
We may-
99% sure.
We
of
may
it.
have discussed that in
We did discuss it.
council, but as we went into the revenue subcommittee and the resolution that we brought back,
Right, I know.
dollars, we're simply not going to, based on the number of households within the city, it wasn't going to give enough money. So Counselor Smith is correct
But-
on that.
Well,
Yeah,
my,
but yes.
my memory
we-
is that we said if we're going to pass this fee, let's pass as much as we need, right, immediately, right? Okay, I get
you-
that.
You are
I
correct.
get that,
Correct.
but I honestly, I think it's too much and I can't support $20. I can support $10. And I'd like to propose that we amend the motion that's on the table to be $10 per month.
We
instead.
would need to vote on the motion and then go from there. Counselor Lehman.
Did we not have a unanimous council vote at $20?
We did.
It
We
was,
did.
it was a
Yeah.
poll
We
to
had a head
prepare,
nod.
to
Yes.
prepare the public.
Yes, and that was the
Right.
amount we agreed to.
But we didn't get the emotional outcry that we did this last couple of weeks prior to doing that, though, John. I mean, we just didn't. I mean, I've heard from
Okay.
countless
Okay.
people that I hadn't heard from before.
Counselor Wells, are you directing the rest of the council, you're addressing the
I'm
rest of.
sorry, I was just responding.
And in response
I know you were
to
looking at
that-
everybody.
In response to that, I'm not hearing that people don't want to support the police department. I'm hearing that, as Counselor Lehman said, they want to be able to vote. So I think to reduce the fee is a disservice to what we promised we would try to do until we can put the levy forward. And $240 a year for each household is significant and it is hard. But if we go to a $10 fee, we aren't doing what we planned to do, which was get us to the point where we could fund it through a levy.
I agree, I hear what you're saying and I respect what you're saying, but I'm not hearing that if we don't pass $20, that somebody's going to lose their job. And I think it gives us the additional incentive to push this levy through.
I think we have the incentive. I totally disagree. I don't think the amount of the fee changes the incentive to do a levy in the future in any way. The amount of the fee makes us solvent enough not to have to make budget cuts. And we looked at that very closely in the ad hoc committee and we discussed it among this group.
I worry that we'll just get lazy and not. And
I
and
don't
I,
think any of it.
I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but
And I think, if I may interrupt, I think what Counselor Bowman has suggested is to bring the resolution back with the appropriate language so that we can, as a council, vote on that and put it and memorialize it so that in your words, we don't get lazy and not be.
probably not the best.
But there were your words.
Right, it was my word.
Any other discussion? If not, I will call for a vote.
We read the motion, so we're clear.
Would you like to do that?
I didn't make the motion.
I can reread it.
All right,
if
thank you.
needed.
Yes, you're correct. I
I
lost
move
track.
to adopt resolution 2026-10 as a resolution setting the public safety support fee at an amount of $20 per unit per month.
And that is the motion that is on the table that I am calling for a vote on. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Counselor Lyman?
Nay.
Got a nay? That is a tie vote. And that then comes down to the mayor to break the tie vote, and I vote in favor. So the resolution would pass 4-3. Motion. 4-3. Okay. Thank you.
now make the motion for the levy? Is that how we do it?
No,
We will bring that back as a resolution.
yes, yeah.
So do we need to formally direct staff to do that now?
I think it would be
Yes.
handy, given that we just had a fairly split vote, that there's clear direction from the council if that is the desired next step.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, a motion to direct staff to return to the next available council meeting with a draft resolution.
On the levy option.
Right.
Local levy.
And will that set a dollar amount?
Not yet, no.
No,
Just the resolution to have a local election?
more information. on
Right,
the
so it,
option levy.
right, and a resolution that would set in place a schedule to ultimately, it isn't the vote next month would not be the vote to go out. There's many more things you need to know before you make that. So it's the first concrete step as the discussion was to not let it slide by, that it becomes a binding thing on our calendar and other things get pushed aside for that to be more prime for this summer's action. I think if there's a motion, I think I understand the guts of the resolution document, what from the discussion, but I do think it's best to have a motion and a vote.
In that
I can make
case,
a motion.
I almost have something written down if you.
All right.
That I think will work.
Counselor Engebretson,
Yeah,
when you're ready.
okay. Okay, let's see how this goes.
All right.
Okay, I'm move that we direct staff to bring a draft resolution to the next city council meeting to develop a public option operating levy to support Coburg public safety for the November ballot.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Lehman to direct staff to bring the information for the public option levy to the next council meeting with the intent to have the levy on the November ballot. Is that correct?
Yes, that is a good paraphrase of.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, we have a second, and I will entertain a vote.
Discussion first. Discussion.
Discussion, okay.
I think that's just a requirement. If there is,
Or
or
if we had anything else to
yeah,
discuss,
just give an opportunity. Someone did. I don't.
okay. All right, I will entertain a vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 6-0. And staff has direction to prepare that resolution for the May meeting.
Yep, and you'll grade me on how well I understood what you were wanting. No, I think I got it.
We can certainly clarify
Yeah.
that as we go.
That's great.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a lot of discussion. That was a difficult decision. We're going to be faced with many more of those. And I appreciate the time and effort. We have another resolution on the agenda, and that is resolution 2026-09, a resolution authorizing a loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund by entering into a financing contract with the Oregon Infrastructure Finance Authority. We have a staff report from Mr. Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we'll just keep rolling on. And this is an example of the other funds that we were talking about, the non-general funds, where infrastructure is a big component of our fund balances and our expenditures. So the item in front of you is, as the mayor noted, is a resolution. It's a requirement because we have an existing loan with it's managed by Business Oregon. It's a combination of the Infrastructure Finance Authority, Safe Water Revolving Loan Fund, all of that. So it's a combination of state and federal funds. It was introduced and executed in 2019. So it is the instrument we've been using for quite some time to make some very necessary and important infrastructure improvements to our water system. The project list for that was pulled from the on page 37 is probably where, if you want to track it on the packet, is kind of where I'll speak mostly from. I put the 2026 Water Master Plan. I was just typing current year, and that's obviously our Water Master Plan is 2014. So that loan was intended to cover a whole host of projects in the Water Master Plan. And as we've talked many times in this room and other places, that as with almost all communities, those dollars didn't go as far as originally hoped and intended for a variety of reasons, COVID being one, and just project cost escalation of 10 to 15% or more a year, depending upon what kind of a project it is. We were able to execute and complete a number of really great projects. But as we talked about most recently on this specific topic, May of almost a year ago, so May of 25, when we did the bid award for the Stallings Lane water supply, the well number 3, we were very clear at that time that we were short of doing the last project, which is to connect that new water supply to the water distribution system. That's about a 0.8 of a mile transmission line. It's an 8-inch line that connects the new water supply to the distribution system. Basically, without securing additional funding, we were in a position, as noted last year in that May staff report, of investing $2.5 to $3 million in new water supply and falling short of being able to actually use it. So in about November, December, in our regular ongoing disbursement processes with Business Oregon, I let them know that we are we're going to be short. And as I said in the staff report in May, that we were pausing the transmission project, stopping work from the engineering design, stopping out until we figured out funding. The project was about 70% designed already, so we just stopped the finishing pieces until we figure out how we were going to fund that. It became Business Oregon kind of heard the issue and said, hey, this is a good candidate for an amendment to the loan, augmenting the loan amount, extending that to be able to actualize the investment that they have partnered with us in to actually make the connection. So the item in front of you of council is an agreement from Business Oregon to add $1 million to the existing $5.5 million loan, or excuse me, 4.75 million. So for a total of 5.75, and there's also a $780,000 forgivable loan as well. As I said, what this enables us to do is actually almost complete the original list. There is a few smaller projects that were looping interties that would have helped in the operations and pressurizing and balancing of the system. Somewhat smaller dollars than this. This is the final significant capital infrastructure of that set from the Water Master Plan. The particulars of what it changes financially to us. We're in the disbursement process, so we're not paying debt service yet. If we do not accept this $1 million, debt service begins in December of 26, so FY 27, estimated payments of approximately 180,000. If we accept this $1 million, it allows us to actually make use of our of what we're paying debt on, and puts that water into our system for our community. That increases the loan amount from about 180,000 a year to roughly 220,000. So an increase of 40,000 a year for this additional 1 million, which is about 20% of new total capital. It also has an impact in our accrued interest payment that has to be done with the first debt installment payment. It's a shorter amount because that increment that the additional $1 million we're borrowing, we're going to use it. If council approves, we would use it almost right away. So the accrued interest for that $1 million is a smaller amount because we're grabbing it and using it and closing it quickly. The majority of our accrued interest is for money we have pulled down to reimburse project costs that we haven't paid the state back in debt service for 6 or so years. That ends up, I mean, they get their interest no matter what, no matter how long we take. So that's a one-time. The accrued interest is a one-time, and then the annual debt service. As a side note, I mentioned, I believe last month when we looked at financials that in June of this year, so 2 months, we're making our final debt service payment on the existing debt service in the water fund of about $80,000. So that goes away. That debt service is satisfied, and we would end up with one fiscal year, the one that we're going to be talking about next week in Budget Committee, FY 27, where we don't have any debt service at all. And then this loan, whether it be 180 or 220 a year, comes online for us. If we take the loan, it delays it 1 more year before we start our debt service. If we don't take the loan, we start paying that a little earlier. If we don't take the loan, as I've said, probably the primary impetus and the primary reason that Business Oregon was amenable to extending it, in addition to looking at I had to submit pro formas, we have to submit all of our rate design, our rate methodology to show that we are having rates ensure that we have the capital, or we have the revenue stream to pay the debt service. All of that was kind of pre-done, and then they gave us a conditional offer to then come to council to say that they're amenable to it. The main thing it does is obviously it brings that water supply, that new water supply that we need for both current and growth into the system. Otherwise, we're 0.8 of a mile short of bringing that water supply in. The project
So in essence, we would have a well with supply and no way to get it into the system.
Right. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So, this, from staff perspective, I wasn't at all sure when I brought it up that it was even theoretically possible that they would have a funding possibility for us. This wasn't a stated, noticed thing to apply for. It was an existing relationship with an existing loan saying, here's our challenge that we have in actually finishing and leveraging, the resource of the loan amount from Business Oregon. And then that ran up the chain real quick to say, hey, this looks like a candidate that makes sense for us to extend the loan amount. So that's kind of a rundown of what we have. Staff is really excited because as I said in last May's staff report, the idea of cash funding that in a fund that would have been 50% of the entire fund balance to cash fund a project like this, we would have delayed for sure, and we would have had to split fiscals. It would have been very challenging to do that scale for us. $1 million in our scale is quite a bit to cash fund. It's as I remember talking about it in the room, it's not absolutely impossible for us to not be able to cash fund, but it would be really at the top edge of our ability to do that. This provides us the ability to finish that project, get that water online, get the SCADA controls that go with it finished, and then be able to work on how to cash fund. We can bring that back in our CIP, how we cash fund the SCADA controls at our other 2 wells and the booster, and have a much more automated and controlled water system to really improve that system's performance and monitoring.
I do want to ask, council, we've been going on for over 2 hours now. It is now 8:16. Is it the intent of this council to continue on and finish the agenda item?
I would like to set a time.
I'd sure like to finish this resolution.
At least this, and then.
And this is the last agenda item is this resolution. So I am hearing from council to continue and finish. Thank you. It's been a long meeting, lots of discussion, lots of tough decisions, and I appreciate that. But I did want to make sure. Okay, counselors, do you have questions for Mr. Hanks?
Good that this money is available. Yes.
They're doing us a favor more than we are doing them.
It chased me a little bit that we even have to ask for it because we had some cost overruns on this project, but at least we have the money available to finish. Rather than digging in our pocket for the cash.
And these are typically pretty competitive, even on the loan side. So it's to not have to
1%.
1%.
loan. Oh, man. Jump all over this.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Spread out over 30 years.
Yeah.
We're lucky to be able to get that option.
Yeah, and I think it just, when we have an asset that's almost ready for use and you've spent millions of dollars on that asset, you want to get it across the finish line.
Yeah, we're so
Pointless to
deep
have
in, why not? I
useless
mean,
asset.
Well, if we had to borrow the money 5 years from now when we actually needed the water, it'd be a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And this does set us up as we go forward, we have less outlay to actually complete the project.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to add that. I know we're tight, but the one real bonus of this is the money that we have spent already to get well 3, the well house, the treatment, chlorination, and the pumping is designed for 2 wells from that site. So when I don't think it's an if, when we need additional water supply, we have really, with this project, prepaid for not only the transmission line that we're talking about tonight, but much of the infrastructure that water supply, that 4th well, you tap that well, you run it into the well house, and it's already designed to take that extra on. So it's really economical when we take the next component of water supply. So that's an exciting piece of this, that we are really front loading a lot of our future water supply need, all dependent, of course, on what kind of flow you get from the 4th well. But yeah, it's really good. We're really preloading this in current dollars, and as Councilor Wells said, rather than those 5 years from now dollars.
They don't seem to be going down.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? At this time, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2026-09, authorizing a loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund by entering into a financing contract with the Oregon Infrastructure Finance Authority.
second,
Have a motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Bowman to adopt resolution 2026-09, a resolution authorizing a loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund by entering into a financing contract with the Oregon Infrastructure Finance Authority. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll entertain a vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
I know everyone agreed at the end, but I just make a plug that there's a couple cool items in there for your reading pleasure tonight. Coleman Street is off and running. If you haven't been by there, concrete's going.
Good.
They're going to be You know, weather is always an issue, but they will be, they're ripping through it. And Brian's doing a great job on site with a couple modifications that we need to make for property owners. Just there's a layout there. Pioneer Valley Estates, just check that one. We're making some headway on it's not, there's no sure things, but we've made it beyond where we've made it before with some federal grant, congressionally directed funding that Mayor Bell was helping with as well. So we're tentatively we are further along than we have been in the last 3 times we've tried that same funding approach.
Thank you for Congresswoman Val Hoyle for
Yep.
calling me
Yep.
and moving this forward.
Yep, we had a couple things
So
they needed.
appreciated that.
Yeah, to make that happen, and we did. And then the last item is just a reminder that budget, I've talked about it several times, budget process starts next Tuesday, May 21st and May 5th, and we'll dive in more.
The fun never ends.
It's always about money all the time.
It is always about money, isn't it? If there are no other comments, questions, discussion, I will adjourn